Welcome to the 13 News Now Sports Overtime Podcast, coming to you on Tuesday, October 21st. And we are joined by the only man on this panel to have been in a 30 for 30 courtesy of ESPN, Brian Smith. Brian, welcome.
Thank you.
And we also have the only man on this panel who will one day have a 30 for 30 made about him, Shane Fordham. Welcome.
Yes, sir. Ready.
And
Let's do it.
Shane's 30 for 30 is not going to be one of those bad ones where it's like, so it's going to be one of those good ones where it's just he rose to the top. He became the man in his profession. I want to make sure I clear all that up. All right. He's not going to be.
What if I told you that I was a huge Jalen Hurts fan?
What if I told you that Justin Fields could be the best quarterback in the NFL in the right situation?
And what if I told you?
I'd call you a wise man. I'd call you a wise man, Connor, real wise man.
Listen, it is difficult to succeed as quarterback of the New York Jets, no matter who you are. You could put 2014 Tom Brady on the New York Jets, and it still might not work out. So we will refrain from the Justin Fields slander today. My name is Connor Reel, and instead, we are going to begin with another situation that is somewhat sad at the moment. I would even venture to say very sad at the moment, and that is the Washington Commanders. Now, they did get some good news, and that is that Jayden Daniels' hamstring injury is not thought to be something that will be a long-term issue. That is far more important than a win or a loss in any one game, and that is the news that the Washington Commanders have gotten as of today after an MRI. His status for next week, that is uncertain, but his long-term health for now, that is something that should not be affected. So Jayden Daniels injured once again, and without Jayden Daniels, a game where they were already down got away from the Commanders entirely. Dallas Cowboys win 44-22 over those Washington Commanders. Now, the Dallas Cowboys have an excellent offense, a really, really good passing game, and if you don't have your offense at full throttle, it's going to be difficult to compete with them. But all of those circumstances considered, how disappointing of a loss is this for the Washington Commanders? Their second in a row.
I don't know about disappointing because they look like a triage unit right now. They didn't have Noah Brown going into the game. They didn't have Deebo Samuel going in the game. They definitely didn't have Terry McLaurin going in the game. And you're asking your star quarterback to basically take them from the abyss and pull out a win over this, which was really hard and difficult to do. So now moving forward, depending on his status, do you start him next Monday night against the Kansas City Chiefs?
It's an interesting question. It really, to me, it all comes down to the doctors. If the doctors say, hey, he's good to go, no risk for further injury, then you put him out there. Because at 3-4, this season is very, very young.
True.
As you said, great point, Brian. I mean, at this stage, it's no Austin Eckler, no Deebo Samuel, no Terry McLaurin, no Noah Brown. I mean, it's going to be difficult for any offense to thrive when they're missing all of their top weapons. But with that being said, the defense didn't put up much of a fight either. Shane, you have been first and foremost on Marshawn Lattimore for poor play this season. And that particular aspect of the Commanders' defense, that may have hit rock bottom against the Cowboys. George Pickens and CeeDee Lamb gave Marshawn Lattimore nightmares that may last well beyond Sunday. What did you see in that Commanders' performance, including another disappointing one from the secondary, Shane?
Yeah, Connor, you honestly took the words right out of my mouth. I mean, Marshawn Lattimore was no help to this defense whatsoever. But I mean, when you look at this receiver duo, CeeDee Lamb, George Pickens, a huge reason why the Cowboys arguably have the best or most explosive offense in the NFL, two number one receivers on the same team on both sides of the field. There's not a lot of DBs that would be able to lock those two down. You know, there's some guys that might be able to slow them down. But at the end of the day, with the way Marshawn Lattimore has been playing both towards the second half of last season and what we've seen so far this season, I mean, we talked about this last week. We knew what was going to happen. We knew where Dak Prescott was going to go with the ball, and it was whichever receiver was lined up against Marshawn Lattimore. That was the huge hole of the defense. It was a consistent hole of the defense the whole game. And what would have helped the Commanders sort of supplement that firepower that the Cowboys got back in CeeDee Lamb's return what would have helped the Commanders supplement that firepower on the Cowboys was getting their own little firepower back, their own munition back, their own weapon back in Terry McLaurin to sort of go shot for shot with the Cowboys, which I think after what we saw from the Commanders last week, against the Bears, I think that's something we could have expected. We could have. I think Jayden Daniels would have had no issue going shot for shot with Dak Prescott if he had Terry McLaurin on the field. But to not have Terry McLaurin on the field, to not have Noah Brown on the field, and then to also not have Deebo Samuel on the field now, who has been holding down that receiver one spot.
As of right now, that might have been the biggest loss as of the way the season's gone so far.
He was the team leader in receiving yards, I believe.
Yeah, he is, and not having any of your top tier receivers, especially Deebo, who your offense was able to at least stay afloat with at having him as your number one receiver. It was near impossible for this offense to keep up with. I mean, Dak Prescott in that Dallas offense that is just, producing at very high volumes right now.
Yeah, and they had more turnovers than the Cowboys. They had more penalty yards than the Cowboys. They had less rushing and less passing yards than the Cowboys. Obviously, less first downs and worse on their third down efficiency. So it was just a struggle all around for the Washington Commanders. They dropped to 3-4. The Cowboys were able to run the ball on them very effectively as well. Javonte Williams, 19 carries for 116 yards and a tutty. So just in every way they possibly could, the Cowboys put it on the Commanders. It's possible that in 4 or 5 weeks, we'll look back on this and say, well, they lost to a pretty good team. The Cowboys might end up being a pretty good team. They're so up and down. They can lose to the Panthers 1 week, and then they can go out and beat the Commanders the next week. I guess their defense probably will never be good enough for us to see them as a true contender this year. But I do not think that this is any sort of the season is over doomsday situation pending Jayden Daniels is back in no less than 1 week. Now, is there, this game was such a lopsided game, and it was a game that ended up being relatively undramatic. So I don't want to move on too quickly. We don't need to jump to next week yet. But is there what else do you guys have to add? What else from covering this game? What else is there that we need to be paying attention to with this Commanders-Cowboys game?
I'd say it depends on who comes back. If all the people we mentioned who are out, if not one of them doesn't come back, I'd have to lean towards sitting him and letting him rest for 1 more week. That's just me, because they're going against the Kansas City Chiefs. You cannot do that to your franchise quarterback, even though how competitive he is. It may not be as bad a hamstring, but under those conditions, and depending on what happens, Jayden Daniels is a competitor. If he tries to take off and he re-aggravates it or makes it worse, now you are sustaining a problem already with this team. I'd say sit him.
Yeah, it's honestly even hard to really evaluate this Commanders team right now because of the injuries. Jayden Daniels has not been at 100% for really half of the season so far, half of the games they've played. He's been, since he's been back, we've seen that knee brace on his knee, and now he has a hamstring issue, which we know can be one of the more difficult lingering injuries in sports. And then, they haven't had a game with Terry McLaurin, Noah Brown, and Deebo Samuel all on the field at the same time. And it seems like Zach Ertz is banged up now as well. He almost didn't play in this past game, in this most recent game against the Cowboys. So it's just really hard to evaluate this Commanders team enough to even be concerned. Like we haven't really seen them at full strength to where we can even give them an accurate sort of rating right now, an accurate sort of explanation as to where they rank among, the playoff teams in the NFL, not like how we were able to last year. So I think that's really the story of the season so far is injuries. And it's B. Smith, I 100% agree with you. If Terry is not a go for this Chiefs game, it doesn't seem like Noah Brown is going to be a go anytime soon. And if especially if there's no Deebo, with that heel contusion, I mean, it doesn't seem like it seems like the Commanders have more to lose playing Jayden Daniels in this game as opposed to more to gain. I mean, fighting for a win against the Chiefs right now with a banged up Jayden Daniels in what is going to be week 8, where he has none of his premier targets to move the ball through. and just makes it easier for defenses to collapse on that run and kind of smother Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt and Jeremy McNichols and Chris Rodriguez. It's just, there's no good that can come out of this for this team or this front office with everything they've invested in Jayden Daniels.
And we also have a situation where we can at least point out that former Virginia Tech Hokie Jalen Lane, in place of those receivers, 3 catches for 60 yards. Obviously not at a place in his career yet where he can slide in and help carry an offense as a number 1 guy, but a solid performance from the rookie. He continues to put in solid performances. I think that they have someone who's going to be a valuable weapon down the line. So let's do one piece of positive news there for the Washington Commanders. Perhaps
Luke McCaffrey belongs in that
mention of
category
Virginia
as well.
Tech. Very good, Connor.
Yeah. I was gonna say
a very good mention of Virginia Tech. Very good.
Got to get him in there. We're not going to talk about the Virginia Tech college team much this year, but we can talk about some of their guys in the pros.
Yeah,
the alums,
including potential starting NFL quarterback Tyrod Taylor.
Yeah,
at some point here, Tyrod may be starting next week for the New York Jets as they seek their first win. Now you mentioned Luke McCaffrey. I didn't see anything from him in this game.
No, not this game. I just mean as a whole from this season overall, someone who is showing promise. I mean, he's honestly becoming, he's really been, in light of the injuries, he's really been Jayden Daniels' main deep threat, so far within these last few weeks. I mean, he didn't really get a chance to take a lot of shots down the field this game because of the pressure. There wasn't a lot of spacing on the floor. Teams knew what the Commanders were going to result to, and that was the run game. I mean, we saw Jayden Daniels even scramble a couple of times, try to pick up some yards himself with his legs. But Luke McCaffrey, I think, belongs in that sort of category as well in terms of young, promising potential on this offense. Guys who have a little more opportunity to grow and develop in light of the absences in this skill room. So
part of the problem here too is it doesn't get any easier past the Chiefs. We go Chiefs, Seahawks, Lions here. 3 straight very difficult games. 3 straight. The Chiefs, obviously the class of the NFL, and then 2 games against teams that you'll likely be competing against for a playoff spot.
Yeah.
Is it too early to look at playoff standings? I don't know, but we can at least determine that the NFC's got some real competition going on here. It's not going to be that easy to slide into the wild card. If I told you right now that the 3 wild card teams in the NFC are the Lions, the Seahawks, and the Rams, those are the 3 wild card teams in the NFL right now. Looking at those 3 teams, they all look very solid. That does not leave a ton of wiggle room for Washington to mess around much longer and still sneak in there. Now, they could overtake. They still got 2 games against Philly. Philly's been up and down, so we can't rule out the division just yet. But the margin for error is getting slim, right? There's not a lot of games that you can afford to waste, which is why as much as you want to be careful going forward and as much as you want to make sure that your future is more important than any one game this season, if Daniels is medically cleared, then maybe give him a go against the Chiefs and see if you can get something going, turn this season around with a big primetime win. When I read off those 3 wildcard teams in the NFC, Shane Fordham, what jumps out to you? Because they were very strong to me. Those are 3 really good. I mean, the Lions and the Rams could be 2 of the best teams in the league. And they feel
the Lions did the Bucs.
Yeah.
On Monday Night Football. I mean, the Lions beat them 24-9.
Yeah, I think have we come back around? Because last week my hot take was that there's no good teams. Shane said if the Bucs beat the Lions, they're officially a good team. Are you now willing to step back? They won't have Mike Evans for the rest of the year. No Mike Evans for the rest of the season with a broken collarbone. Are we cooling down on the Bucs?
I'm not saying I'm cooling down because they also didn't have Chris Godwin last night either. So, and then, they obviously lost Mike Evans during that game. And, so I'm not ready to say they're not good. I think they're kind of going through a similar issue as the Commanders right now, at least on offense. They're struggling to keep their.
We thought, sorry to interrupt you. I just want to touch on that injury point real quick. We thought that it was going to be a very temporary situation for the Bucs. That was one of your big things last week, which was very correct at the time, is that they're going to get all those guys back up and running within the next 2 weeks. We have yet to see a full-strength Chris Godwin, who is coming off of a major, major injury, and now Mike Evans is gone for the year. And so now you can no longer sit. Yes, are they going through the same situation as the Commanders? Yes. but does it seem like it might be semi-permanent for the Bucs, at least when it comes to Evans? And we have yet to see a big game from Godwin. It's difficult to see them being a true contender with Mike Evans out for good and Chris Godwin potentially compromised season long while he works his way back.
Yeah,
possibly. I mean, I definitely think the Commanders are in a better position because, like you said, they at least have more hope that their guys will be coming back. But looking at the Bucs, I still think the Bucs can be a contender with Chris Godwin on the field, depending on the shape he's in. A healthy Emeka Egbuka, Tez Johnson, who looks like a really good number 3 option right now. I don't know if you guys saw that one touchdown he had against the Lions. I mean, just looking athletic as a ball carrier, as a possession catch receiver, but also just as a yards after catch guy. Seems like he's really developing and coming along every week. Then you also have a dependable tight end in Cade Otton. And then, when Bucky Irvin, comes back and hits his stride, we know how dynamic he is in the run and the pass. I still think the Bucs, especially with that O-line they have, I still think the Bucs can be a contender in the NFC, especially because of how competitive the NFC is this year, and they're still one of the, kind of last night aside, kind of still one of the teams in the NFL with the best records right now, and that's with the injury. So I think once they get the guys who are capable of playing this season, once they get all of those guys back on the field together, I still think the Bucs can make a push. Not saying that they can be a conference championship team, but I still don't think it's out of the question for them to at least make some competition for the wild card.
Still got Baker, still got those running backs, still got that line, and Egbuka looks like the best rookie in the league. Let me ask you this. If you were, who do you feel more confident in to make a Super Bowl run? The Bucs or the Packers? Packers are 4-1-1. They finally turned it on a little. I mean, Micah finally kind of really truly arrived in a big way against the Cardinals. But the Packers have not looked great since week 1. Packers, Bucs, who do you like as things currently stand?
Wow, I lean towards the Packers only because, from my knowledge, health-wise, they're okay. The Bucs, unless you have added depth, particularly at receiver, they can set themselves up to not really finish well. And I think just the Packers have the edge at this point.
Shane, you've been on the Bucs for a couple weeks now, and let me give you. All right, the Packers' last 4 results. They beat the Cardinals by 4. The Cardinals look like the Cardinals. They beat the Bengals, who are obviously compromised. They tied the Cowboys, and they lost to the Browns. That's the last 4 games for the Green Bay Packers. Having said that, Shane, do you like the Bucs over the Packers? Man. Take a stand. Take a stand for your squad.
Well, see, this is the thing. I'm actually, if you guys remember, I've actually been pretty high on or at least prior to the season, high on the Packers just because of the talent that they've been able to shore up together, especially with the talent this offense has. Same thing though. It's like they're having issues keeping guys on the field at the same time too. Seems like Christian Watson is showing promise of coming back, but then Jayden Reed goes down. But they've had that cycle for a while. But I really do like the Packers defense a lot more than I like the Bucs defense. Micah Parsons coming alive, one of the best defensive players overall in the NFL. Rashawn Gary, one of the more underrated guys. Xavier McKinney, one of the elite DBs in the NFL. Quay Walker, a guy who is sort of under the radar as well at the linebacker position. Yeah, I really like this Packers defense, and I think that, again, with that if word, if the Packers are able to get their guys back together. I know Jayden Reed is out for the season, I believe, but Christian Watson, I know this is something that seems like we say every year, but Christian Watson is coming back at some point this season. So
that is not Christian Watson is a fine player, but you keep calling out, oh, they lost Jayden Reed. Oh, they don't have Christian Watson. These are not big time difference makers, are they? These are not the type of guys. This is not a Mike Evans. I mean, I would say solid players, and you should be able to make up for their production as long as like a bunch of them aren't injured at the same time.
Yeah. I would say the Bucs receivers for sure are more of an elite status than the Packers. But the Packers, they have young guys with potential. And I would say they are difference makers. I mean, we saw what Jayden Reed was able to do to an Eagles team twice. We've seen Christian Watson show flashes of being a receiver one.
The
We know
showing flashes is a difference maker does not make. A difference maker
for sure.
game in and
But
game
he
out
needs to.
is changing the game.
But he also needs to stay on the field. Like that's, and I know that's an issue in itself. But when Christian Watson is on the field, he has flashes of being a talented receiver. We know who Josh Jacobs is as a running back, arguably a top 5 running back in the NFL right now. He was an Offensive Player of the Year candidate just last season. Yeah. I think Jordan Love. I mean, that goes without saying. Obviously, ceiling is high in terms of the potential he has as a quarterback. We need to see that sort of come into fruition more in terms of consistency in the playoffs. But I think on the offense, Matthew Golden, who, that's sort of a flower they're still waiting on to bloom fully. But
I did catch him on a big play while I was watching. I had a little quad box going. I did catch a big play or two from Matthew Golden.
He hasn't had that sort of introduction game to the NFL yet.
He's a rookie. He's a smaller guy. It's going to take some time.
It's going to take some time, but we've seen it from other guys. We've seen it from Jacory Krosky-Merritt. We've seen it from Emeka Egbuka. It's up and down, but he's at least had a game where he was a force. Like he had a game where the defense had to look at him twice. Like, okay, we need an answer for this guy. Emeka Egbuka obviously being the favorite for Offensive Rookie of the Year. He's had a couple of games where he got that attention from a defense, whether it was Sauce Gardner struggling to the guy who's supposed to be the best corner in the league, struggling to, lock down.
It's not 2023 anymore. I think we can leave the best corner in the league stuff, but you got a guy in Denver who's your reigning defensive player of the year.
For sure. No disrespect, but Sauce before this, I mean, last season, Sauce and Pat were kind of here to each other. It was during the course of the season.
Last season. That's
fair. Going into it was during the season where we noticed that sort of divide, that gap become a little wider.
Would you take Shane? I know you're biased, as am I, but would you take Sauce or Quinion Mitchell
Quinion Mitchell? Easy. Quinion Mitchell, no question.
I'm going with Sauce.
Well, Jay,
I'm going with Sauce.
He's just saying that. He knows what the right answer is.
Listen, you mentioned the Packers defense. I want to read you a stat line real quick, okay? This is 25 for 36, 279 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Granted, 6 sacks, but that's not a bad stat line. That is a stat line from none other than Jacoby Brissett against the Green Bay Packers. So that, the Packers defense, I think, is really good on paper, but I would like to see more consistent production out of them, I think.
I think that's fair. But, this is also a defense that is, I mean, because that was what, game 2? That was week 2?
No, that was last week. That was last week. The Cardinals were up by 3 in the fourth quarter against the Green Bay Packers.
Oh, Jacoby Brissett, Cardinals. Yeah. Okay, sorry. I was looking at the Browns game. It's definitely need more consistency, but I think they have big time players, which does make a big difference when it comes to playoff time. I think you kind of see those guys shine a little more when the games matter the most, and I think, Micah Parsons hasn't been too flashy in the playoffs to this point, but Micah Parsons is a guy.
Finally this week, he exploded and he looked like prime Cowboys Micah Parsons this week. Parsons this week, I'll give you the stat line here because it's really impressive. Micah Parsons, 3 sacks, 4 tackles for a loss this week, 5 quarterback hits. I mean, that is as good a game as a pass rusher could play. So finally, Micah Parsons breaks out. Maybe it just took him a while. He'll get going and they'll pick it up. But I'm still hesitant on the Packers. I'm hesitant to call them a true Super Bowl contender at this point. I think they're amazing on paper, but I need to see
like that right now.
I think the difference, though, at least looking at these two teams and the Bucs and the Packers, I think the difference is no question Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield plays better as the game progresses. He plays better in the crunch time of games and situationally than Jordan Love does, especially in the playoffs. We see Baker Mayfield rise to the occasion on more times than Jordan Love, obviously. And, Jordan Love is still young, so he has time. But in terms of right now, I think Baker is the difference. So I'm like, I like the Packers defense more than I like the Bucs defense. But there's no way I'm picking Jordan Love right now over Baker Mayfield, even without Mike Evans. I think with a Chris Godwin, Emeka Egbuka, and the way Tez Johnson has looked with a healthy Cade Otton, I there's no way I'm picking Jordan Love over Baker Mayfield. And that's with Christian Watson coming back. That's with maybe a possibly more bloomed, comfortable in the offense, Matthew Golden, Josh Jacobs, that O-line they have. So it's a little split, but overall, I think just with what we've seen from Baker, especially this season, I think Baker kind of deserves the edge in that conversation.
Agreed. Now, can we talk about another team that I'm surprised you guys haven't hammered more? It's weird I'm bringing them up because they actually lost, but a very key part of their team still looked good. A 33-31 loss to the division rival Bengals puts the Steelers at 4-2. But even in that loss, Aaron Rodgers played well. 249 yards passing, 4 touchdowns. Granted, the 2 interceptions, took no sacks. Aaron Rodgers still looked good, and they basically – one of the only games in NFL history I've ever seen where it feels like a pair of wide receivers won the game on their own. I mean, Jamar Chase and T. Higgins were like, oh, we got a guy who can get the ball in the air? Okay, wonderful. We can take care of the rest. So an incredible game, not enough to downplay the Steelers just yet. Where do you see this Pittsburgh team? Again, 4-2, Rodgers looks good. The defense looks like it's regressed a touch from being, one of the better – Jalen Ramsey doesn't necessarily look like he can be a lockdown corner anymore. He had a tough game. Like Shane said, though, about Marshawn Lattimore, you're going to have a tough game if you're facing Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. I'm rambling a little bit now. I'll toss it over to you, Brian. What do you see from these Pittsburgh Steelers?
I'm not convinced. Sorry. I'm not. 4-2, that's great. They do have holes. If this is Aaron Rodgers 5 years ago, I'd say, sure, but right now, it's a long season, guys.
And Shane, before I go to you, here are the Steelers' wins. Browns, Vikings, Pats, Jets. Those are the Steelers' wins. The only quality win there really is the Pats. Exactly. And this was early on before the Pats started to gain steam.
Yeah.
What do you see from the Pittsburgh Steelers, Shane Ford?
Yeah, I'm a little less confident in the Steelers now than I was at the beginning of the season. And it's honestly mainly the defense. This defense is not what it was in prior seasons. It doesn't look like the elite caliber defense that we have grown accustomed to seeing, at least during this TJ Watt era. I just think in that game against the Bengals, I mean, it just seemed like they didn't even really make adjustments to try to contain Jamar Chase. Clearly Jalen Ramsey was not the answer. And you already touched on that, Connor. He as a coverage corner, he's not Ramsey anymore. That's not who Jalen Ramsey is anymore. And it just seems like they struggled to make the adjustments that we saw the Bengals make in containing DK Metcalf. In containing, or at least in which forced the Steelers to kind of work the ball more to their tight ends. We saw Pat Freiermuth pop out and have a game. We saw Washington. We saw, we saw different guys. We saw the Steelers have to spread the love around to different guys in this offense, to their tight end room mostly, because of the adjustments that the Bengals made against DK Metcalf. They said, no, you guys got to beat us with somebody else. We're not going to let you beat us with this guy. The Steelers didn't do that with Jamar Chase. Now, granted, they have a better number two option.
To your point, Shane, 8 players caught passes for the Steelers in that game.
Yeah.
Which is good, spreading the wealth. Yeah.
But if you look at the Bengals, I mean, yeah, T. Higgins had big plays in key moments, but Jamar Chase was the consistent factor throughout most of that game. And there were very few attempts to double team him. There were very few, it wasn't a lot of adjustments at all. And then on top of that, it's like the defense had trouble getting 40-year-old Joe Flacco on the ground. They sacked him twice. But if you have TJ Watt,
couldn't get that youngster down.
Yeah, get Unc on the ground. Joe Flacco is not outrunning.
Shane
is not outrunning those guys. So
Shane, what age is the Unc cutoff?
Is the Unc cutoff like what age are you Unc?
Correct.
Or no longer?
I would say, how old are you, Connor?
Don't.
No, it's a separate question. This is totally off. Side note. This is side note. How old are you?
All right, so moving on, we have another Steelers. I have another Steelers Bengals question for you guys.
Okay, all right.
So when it comes to the Steelers Bengals, something interesting happened in the AFC North. Shane, something interesting happened in the AFC North. Shane, what happened in the AFC North is the Cleveland Browns were the started Joe Flacco. What a crazy way to answer that question. What's the unk cutoff? What's the unk cutoff? I don't know. How old are you? It's crazy.
I'd say
so disrespectful.
45, maybe 45 to 50, maybe.
Crazy disrespectful. Unbelievable. All right. Speaking of disrespect, the Cleveland Browns started the season with Joe Flacco as their QB1. They traded Joe Flacco 2 weeks ago to the Cincinnati Bengals for a 5th-round pick. They also sent out a 6th-round pick. So they basically added a 5th but lost a 6th. They jumped in value there. And then they got rid of Joe Flacco, and they gave him to a division rival that was totally floundering and without improvement at the quarterback position, likely would have played their way out of the playoffs before Joe Burrow could get back on the field. With Joe Flacco, it looks like maybe they can tread water long enough for Burrow to get back. Maybe, right? We don't want to overreact too much to one game, but he can get the ball to those receivers, and that's all you got to do with the Bengals. Mike Tomlin came out and he said, I don't understand that. Why would you trade a quarterback that you think is good to your division rival? Why would you give them that juice? They got a small asset back, right? And they're not going anywhere this season. The Browns' season is lost, right? And they got a small asset back. So maybe that's how they look at it. But
as the Giants, they did it.
You give a division rival in your state juice and life and a chance at the playoffs. Do you guys agree with Mike Tomlin that is a flat-out no-no, even if you can have some asset improvement? You just don't do that, all right?
I bet you analytics had something to do with it.
Maybe so. And analytically, it is a good trade. Hey, we got something. Yeah. We got something for a non-entity. Going forward, we're going to play Dylan Gabriel. We're going to see what we've got in this guy. We don't need Joe Flacco. Can we get something for him? There's a team willing to give us something for him. So let's send it out. And maybe we'll get a good player with that 5th-round pick as opposed to just don't help. But again, it's a vibes thing, for lack of a better word. If you have a chance to contribute to the Bengals losing, you do it. They are one of your rivals. You do it, right? You do not help them. They're one of your rivals. You want to make sure going into next year they have less momentum, and then that's a long-term play. Or you add the asset and you say, look, we're going to be a better team. We're not worried about how good they are. We're not going anywhere this season. How do we make our team better? And that's what they did. And
Shane, I got to mention the fact of the unk. You think about it, Joe Flacco and Aaron Rodgers, combined age of what, I believe 81?
81 or 82, something like that. Yeah.
That's crazy.
That's what I thought unk was in early 80s.
No, that's OG. Unk, I'd say, in answer to your question, I'd say 45-ish.
Yeah. D-Smith, what do you think of the Flacco trade?
I think it was an older version of Saquon Barkley. They gave up on his. We don't need him. Well, I said,
the Giants didn't get anything for Saquon Barkley.
They didn't. Right? They basically just say, "Here, take him."
They lost.
That's even worse. The fact that they didn't get any that makes the Giants trade on a whole. They're not trade. That makes the Giants deal on a whole other level because they let him walk for free. That trade one of the worst, or that move one of the worst moves in NFL history because they let him walk for free.
If the Giants kept Saquon Barkley, he would have been the best player on their team. The Browns keeping Joe Flacco, he's sitting on the bench.
Yes.
So it's, I think it's totally different from that. I understand the in division, you help a division, but this at least has some logic behind it. You got an asset for something that was a non-entity for you. Though I will also say it's good to have Joe Flacco in your locker room if you've got young quarterbacks.
Heck yeah.
Right? I mean, he was Lamar's mentor, and Lamar seems to love him. Yeah. So I would have kept him just for the simple fact of to mentor Gabriel and Shador. It's good to have Flacco there. But
do you think he play video games with him?
Say that again.
You think he play video games with him too? Maybe.
I don't even know. Do those guys play video? Dylan Gabriel's almost an unk himself. He was in college for like 10 years, right?
Well, no. Yeah, mid-20s, late 20s. That's not unk.
I think the only unk thing about Dylan Gabriel is that he would drive around a minivan, so that he and his teammates could go get workouts in and stuff on the field, drive to the field together, real team guy. But I would say that's the only unk thing about him.
Does he do that? That's the type of thing. Hey, if he did that in the pre-draft process, B. Smith would have took him number 1 overall. This guy picking up his teammates. That's moxie. That's moxie right there.
Natural born leader and captain.
That's right.
Dylan Gabriel, by the way, in college for 6 years. He started college in 2019. Shane, were you still a college athlete in 2019?
I was just starting, so that means me and Dylan Gabriel are the exact same age. Because if that was his freshman year, that was my freshman year.
And we just decided that he's an unk. That means you're an unk.
I didn't say he was an unk. I said the most unk thing about him was that he drives a minivan. that was my description.
That was it. Sorry, I messed that up. All right. Well, Shane, what are your thoughts on the trade? Do you think it was a no-no? You don't help a division rival, or do you think it was a yes? Get an asset, make your team better.
I think it was a no-no, specifically because of just the impact that Joe Flacco brings to a young, inexperienced quarterback room. You have the Browns. The Browns think that they at least have one guy that can be the future, not the guy that a lot of us think should be the future of that team, but they at least have a guy that they believed in enough to pick over the guy who was arguably the best quarterback in college last season. So the fact that they believe in Dylan Gabriel enough to put him in this position, give him the keys, in a pretty good system to be in, you need having Joe Flacco on your team is also an investment in him. You're putting him in a position where you don't have to just throw him into the fire immediately and risk having another Anthony Richardson situation where, the bright lights too soon can just be too much and just be detrimental to his career.
Was that the problem? Was that the problem?
Yeah.
I mean, it was part of it, I think. Or you could also,
it's an accuracy thing.
So they chose to, keeping Joe Flacco, you create now more of a system like a Alex Smith to Patrick Mahomes. Now, granted, take that with a grain of salt, just comparing the rotation there. And then or even more recently, a Sam Darnold to JJ McCarthy sort of situation. Now, that worked out a lot better for them than they planned.
Can I ask you guys a question? Is not to distract from your answer, but is JJ McCarthy, you don't want to question anybody's health, right? These guys put their bodies through so much.
Yeah.
I saw JJ McCarthy on the sideline of that Eagles-Vikings game in full pads, running up and down the sideline with excitement. Is he still out? Or do they think Carson Wentz is a better option?
There's no way they think Carson Wentz is better option.
Do you guys remember JJ McCarthy had a brutal start to the season.
Yeah,
and that team is super talented.
But did you see his last 2 games? He was the fire of the offense.
JJ McCarthy?
There's no way they.
Oh, now I got to game log you. Now I got to pull the game log up.
With that momentum that he built up, there's no way they're purposely keeping him out. He got hurt. Because he got hurt right as he was sort of hitting his stride.
Here was his most recent game that I have here was against, and I thought he had played one more after this, so this is actually my bad. But they played Atlanta. He had 158 yards passing, 2 interceptions, and took 6 sacks. He had a QBR of 6.7. And
look at that Bears game.
And in that Bears game, he played
Bears game.
He played 3 really bad quarters, and then he turned it on in the 4th. But in that Falcons game, he looked totally and completely overmatched. And then they put him, and he finished the game. And then it turned out he had an ankle issue, and they put in Carson Wentz. I'm just wondering why he's in. So if Carson got hurt, would JJ go in? Why is he in full pads? Or am I tripping? I thought that's what I saw.
Maybe he's no. He was definitely in full pads. He had like the earpiece in. He's probably helping with some signals. Things like that. But I mean, and this is all conjecture here, obviously, because we're not inside that locker room.
Yeah,
I would guess
doctors.
I would guess that they are just being overly cautious. They got a taste of what this guy could be capable of at the end, the way he closed out that Bears game. They know they definitely have the offensive pieces around the quarterback position to contend for a Super Bowl. They have the defense, they have the coaching. They just need that cherry on top to tie everything together, and that's the quarterback position. So I would
you're
guess they're
saying
being
Wentz
cautious.
is a better option. You're saying they kept him out because Wentz is a better option now. For a team that wants to win now,
that's not
Carson Wentz is a better option.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying they're being cautious to protect JJ McCarthy to make sure that when he comes back, he's coming back the right way into his, and at his best health wise, so that because of what we saw in that Bears game, he can sort of build on that with this group. That is really a young, with him at the core, would be a very young and talented and skilled offensive group in the NFL.
That's fair. But we are now 6 games into his second season. And in 2 seasons, he's played 2 games. I mean, that's at some point you want to protect guys, but at some point you gotta play.
Well,
right now, look, he's hurt. Maybe he's just hurt, and they said, "Hey,
depends on."
And maybe you don't want to bring him back against the Eagles. That would make sense to me. But I was just surprised when I saw him in full pads. I was like, "Oh, okay, this guy's playing. This guy's active, but he's not playing."
Yeah,
bring in
what's going on.
Bryce
I don't
Young
want to question players' health, but
maybe it's a Bryce Young situation. Health-wise, he was a little beat up, and all of a sudden he had to watch for a little bit, and he was struggling. Now that he's back, he could pull a Bryce Young. Who knows?
Well, Bryce Young got benched.
That too, yeah.
And then came back.
And
now the Panthers are kind of getting some things going, actually.
Yeah, they're moving a little bit. They're grouping. They're moving and grouping a little bit. Yeah, they're moving a little bit.
The Panthers have won 3 straight games, and they are 4-3. Now, granted,
they just got second place in the division.
They beat the Dolphins and the Jets, but they also took down the Cowboys.
Okay, it's not saying much when you beat the Jets. It doesn't matter. But okay, yes.
A win is a win, B. Smith. A win is a win.
I know.
All right, we're talking Jets now. Do you guys want to hear my take it or leave it for the week?
Sure, why not?
My take it or leave it for this week is that the New York Jets.
Oh, see, this is karma. This is karma. Because you made a take on the Jets.
What?
You froze up on it right when
okay, hold on. I think I need to get a charger.
It's gonna be your take's gonna just basically cause your computer to melt down.
No. Oh, no. Listen. I'm not. This is a positive Jets take. A positive Jets take. Okay.
Watch it freeze again.
I think the Titans and the Raiders are worse than the Jets. I actually think the Titans are just beyond a mess. They've already fired their coach. Remember, the only game the Titans have won is they beat the Cardinals in the weirdest game ever. I mean, there was no world in which the Cardinals should have lost that game. They made like 3 once-in-a-generation mistakes in the same game, and that's the only reason the Titans got a win. So I think the Titans are definitely worse than the Jets. And then the Raiders have basically folded. I mean, the Raiders aren't even trying at this point. They got absolutely demolished by the Chiefs. And when they lose, it looks bad. However, when the Jets lose, it's not so bad. Let me give you the Jets' last few losses, okay? You ready?
I know, 13-6 and 13-11.
That's pretty good right there. I mean, they're not scoring very many points, but their defense is definitely putting up a fight.
Exactly, which is what I've been saying for like the last 3 years. They've wasted that defense.
So take it or leave it. The Jets are only the 3rd worst team in the NFL.
I'm leaving that. I'm not taking it.
You think they're the worst team in the NFL? You think they're worse than the Titans? They are not worse than the Titans, man.
Yes.
Listen, the Titans lost to the Raiders 20-10.
Did the Titans do what? Minus 11 yards of offense?
Shoot, I wouldn't be surprised.
Thank you. No. Did they? Yes or no?
Not that I know of.
Exactly. How about the Raiders? Did they do minus 11?
Now that actually I think is true. Let me pull this. This is going to be upsetting. Let me pull this Raiders box score up from last week because shockingly enough, B. Smith, I think it might have even been worse than that.
No, nothing's worse than that.
Well, just hold your horses. Now let's Shane. While I pull this up, my take it or leave it. You taking it?
I'm definitely taking it.
Let's go.
I'm
Shane's
100. I'm 100% taking the honestly, the Jets have been one quarterback away from being like sort of one of those teams. One of those teams you got to look twice at a little bit.
Are you saying that quarterback is not Justin Fields, your guy?
It hasn't been this season. It hasn't been this season. It hasn't been this season, but they
I
have.
I said we weren't going to take shots at Justin Fields because he works hard and he seems like a really, really great dude and a great teammate, and he hasn't been able to get it going in the NFL the way you want.
It's not a shot. I mean, we're not saying anything that's not true. He hasn't had the best season.
Yeah.
You know,
All right, now let me read you. Here's the Raiders' offensive production against the Chiefs. Total in the game, 95 yards of offense against the Chiefs. They ran 30 plays. The Chiefs had 30 first downs. The Raiders ran 30 plays in the game. That's insane. They had 3 first downs. They ran 30 plays. They had 70 passing yards and 25 rushing yards.
How many wins they have?
95 total yards.
How many wins do they have?
They've got 2 wins. I don't know how in the world.
They have 2 wins.
But right now,
how many wins do the Titans have?
No, they beat the Titans, which doesn't count, right? They beat the Titans.
Okay.
And then in game number 1, they beat the Patriots 20-13.
Okay.
And it's a whole different Patriots group.
How many wins do the Jets have?
The Jets have none wins, but their losses have looked better than they did. There's more context.
I don't accept that. What part of that? It's not a win. They did not win. They have 0 wins.
Shane, if the Jets and Raiders played right next week, who wins?
Raiders.
Jets 100%.
The Jets win that game, I think.
The Jets win the game. The Raiders don't have the talent to contend with the Jets. The Jets at least have talent. They both have.
But the Jets will find a way to lose it. That's the part you guys don't understand. I don't care how talented the Jets are defensively. They will find a way to lose it.
But the Raiders are also, I believe Jacoby Myers has been hurt he was definitely out this past week. I think he missed last week as well. So even the talent they do have hasn't been healthy the past couple of weeks.
The Jets ran 60 plays.
Oh, wow.
In their last game. 60. That's
resulting
double the number of plays the Raiders ran.
Resulting in no wins, though.
They outgained them by 130 yards.
It's not making me feel any better.
Would you?
Tyrod Taylor could cook the.
I hope he
cook
does.
the.
I hope he gets.
Could cook the Raiders for sure.
Just hand over the keys to him. Let him do what he does.
Brian, if I could guarantee you that the Titans will only win 1 game this season, which means the Jets would have to win no games this season to get the number 1 overall pick, would you root for that? Are you in on the tank?
I have experienced the tank on a few occasions.
So are you in? Are you in on the tank? You might as well be now.
I might as well be, yes. Sure, why not?
All right. 0-17.
Go 0 wins. Go 0 wins.
And another thing we can do, since we have been, I don't mean to go so hard on the Jets. I thought that was going to make you feel bad.
No. It's okay. I'm used to it.
There's a positive.
Scar tissue for skin.
Something we can do is we can go ahead and completely erase. I'm not even going to try to hold on to this. Sometimes you make a take, it's up and down, you stick with it. Do you guys think I should go ahead and erase any thoughts of the Jaguars actually being a good team? I mean, why would anyone trust the Jaguars? They've got a little Jets in them too, where even if they show a little something.
Stop comparing people to this year's Jets.
Okay.
Stop it. Just stop it. There is no comparison right now.
Okay, well then just focusing on the team in Jacksonville. Are we out on the Jaguars? The Jaguars beat the Chiefs in prime time. Since then, they had a close loss to the Seahawks at home, and they got blown out by the Rams in London. Are we out on the Jaguars as a legitimate group?
Two good teams, though, right? You got to take lumps.
Two good teams.
I think that don't give up on the Jags just yet.
All right, you're not out on the Jags.
Well, no. I'm looking at their schedule right now. I'm definitely not out. I mean, I think next week against the Raiders, that can be a W.
That's a dub.
I think November 9th, the next week against the Texans, that can be a W.
Yep.
They're gonna have some issues against the Chargers. I think gonna have some issues against the Cardinals, especially if Kyler Murray is back that week. I think the Titans, that's a W.
Brissett has been better than Murray, though. Has he not this season? I mean, right? Now, they play the Jets and they play the Titans twice, and they play the Raiders. So, the Jaguars might just fall into the playoffs because that schedule is so bad. They got that last place schedule. So I guess, all right, well, you guys aren't giving up on the Jaguars? I won't either then. Let's ride with the Jaguars. That's fine. I won't give up on the Jaguars. Do we want to talk Shane? I'm going to clear out. Let's do a clear out for Shane here. Okay. Shane, give us 3 minutes on the Philadelphia Eagles, possibly the resurgent Philadelphia Eagles, at least in terms of the wide receiver room.
Connor, I got to take it or leave it before. I feel like it's only right before we jump to the Eagles.
Okay, yeah.
Before we jump to the Eagles, I gotta give my take it or leave it. All right.
Okay.
Take it or leave it. Hold on, let me get the thing up here. Take it or leave it. The Broncos are the second best team in the AFC right now. Now hear me out. Hear me out.
Super leave it.
Hear me
okay,
out.
Go ahead.
Hear me out. Hear me out. Hear me out. They have two guys right now that are top 5 in sacks, Nick Bonito and Jonathan Cooper. J.K. Dobbins is a top 8 rusher in the league right now. Cortland Sutton is top 10 in receiving yards. Bo Nix is tied for 7th in touchdowns. They have elite coaching in Sean Payton. They have an elite defense, obviously, with a reigning defensive player of the year in Patrick Surtain. They have a talented offense. I know what you think about Bo Nix, Connor. I know what you think about, they don't have a good quarterback. They don't have this and that, but it is a talented offense. They have a really underrated receiver one. They clearly have a talented run game, and they have a talented quarterback. And honestly, if you're looking at the competition that they have in the AFC is more wide open than it has ever been. Connor, you just said last week that you didn't even think there were any good teams in the entire NFL. So the Bills look weak.
Including the Broncos.
The Bills look weak. Other than the Chiefs, the Bills look weak. The Ravens are hurt. The Colts, they look good right now, but are we ready to say that we trust Daniel Jones in the playoffs right now? The Chargers, same goes with Justin Herbert in the playoffs with also a hurt Khalil Mack, who is now coming back but still hurt. The AFC is wide open. The toughest competition that the Broncos have in the AFC is really in their own division against the Chiefs and really the Chargers, depending on what Justin Herbert is able to do late in the season in the playoffs this year.
Whoa. You said the Chiefs and the Chargers, that's their only competition in the AFC? You are
their
done?
Their main competition.
You're done with the Buffalo Bills. You're done with the Buffalo Bills. It's over for you.
I don't think the Buffalo Bills are posing a tougher competition overall as a team than the Chiefs. But
the Bills are better than the Broncos.
Maybe
the Bills over the Broncos. You wouldn't take the Bills over the Broncos right now in the postseason?
No. Well, postseason, Josh Allen.
How quickly they forget. Right
now, like in terms of the way the teams look right now.
Are we going to hear it again, Connor?
I'm not taking them right now.
Josh Allen's not a top 5 quarterback.
How quickly
I never said that. I never said that, B. Smith. I never said that.
I'm sorry, my apologies.
If Shane was GM of the Bills, he would have traded Josh Allen for Justin Fields 2 years ago.
If you look at Josh Allen, though, it's not like Josh Allen has a lot of help on the offense other than James Cook. It's not like the defense, it just looks old and tired. Like the Bills are not as good of a team as people think. They have one of the 3 best players in the entire NFL, and he happens to play at the most important position in the game. And they have been there year in and year out, regardless of the roster. Josh Allen has shown that he can take that team to incredible heights. And last year in the playoffs, they dismantled the Denver Broncos. Real quick, going back to your original take, let me tell you why I'm going to leave it right now. I'm gonna tell you the Broncos wins. Okay, the Broncos have one good win. They beat the Philadelphia Eagles. Great win. Okay. Other than that, they beat the Titans. We've talked about the Titans a lot in this pod, all right. They beat the Jake Browning Bengals. They beat the Jets. We've talked about them a lot in this pod. And they beat the Giants. They gave up 32 points to the Giants, and that was probably the greatest fourth quarter comeback in the history of the NFL. Now, is that a feather in the Broncos' cap, or is the fact that they were down that big to the New York Giants maybe reason to question those Denver Broncos? I don't think the offense is going to be good enough, and they beat the Eagles. That was a really good win. Other than that, they haven't shown them. First of all,
how far back were they in that game?
What was it? They were down
28. It was 26-8 in the fourth quarter.
26-8 in the fourth quarter.
They scored all 30 points in the fourth. It doesn't matter, and that's not a bad Giants defense. That's arguably the best D line in the NFL with a pretty decent secondary.
Yeah, but they got gifted. They got gifted an interception.
Back against they didn't score 30 on the Titans in one quarter. This was an actual decent football team that they pulled off a historic comeback against. And Bo Nix, he's the only quarterback or one of the only quarterbacks in history to have that stat line in one single quarter. So this is a talented offense. And then you're bringing up schedules. Do you want to look at the Bills schedule? You want to look at the
Not
wins
yet,
that
not
the
yet,
Bills
not yet.
have?
Hold on. We can get to the Bills schedule in just a second. 2
But,
points about the
but I'm
Giants
saying
Broncos game.
you brought up that the Broncos don't have real wins on their schedule. There's only one real win that the Bills have, and that's the Ravens before everybody got hurt. They beat the
Agreed.
Jets. We just talked
Real
about
quick-
how we're trying to
real
defend
quick-
the Jets as one of the three worst teams in the NFL. They beat a suffering and struggling Miami Dolphins team, the New Orleans Saints.
It's very fair.
With what, Spencer Rattler as the quarterback?
The
And then
Bills
the Patriots.
do not. The Bills don't have signature wins either. That's a very fair point. I 100% accept that point. Very fair. I put my faith in Josh Allen in the Bills situation. It's a faith that I cannot find for Bo Nix. 2 points about that Giants game. One, Jackson Dart gives them the ball, a huge rookie mistake, very, very deep in his
He
own
didn't give them the
territory.
ball. That defense took the ball. I just said that's an elite defense.
It's a rookie throwing an interception at the worst possible time. They were also gifted what we like to call Brian Daboll time management, which I would not let him schedule a single day of my life. And number three, that vaunted Broncos defense needed one stop to seal the game, and Jackson Dart drove down the field and scored what would have been the game-winning touchdown in most other situations against that vaunted Broncos defense. The Giants drove right down the field and scored a touchdown against that defense. I have reason to question the Denver Broncos to the point where I would not say that they're the second best team in the AFC. Now, the Bills don't have signature wins, but they've got the reigning MVP, and I have more faith in him than I do in anything that the Broncos are bringing to the table, even a very, very talented and stingy defense. Do we have any love in this discussion for the New England Patriots?
As what?
A little bit.
As a team that is on par with the Denver Broncos. The Patriots. The Patriots have 4 wins in a row, but again, we run into the schedule thing. Saints, Titans, but they also beat the Bills and the Panthers. Panthers look like they might be a decently formidable opponent. Drake May is playing like an MVP candidate. I know that's weird to say, but he really, if you go look at his game log, he actually looks like one of the better quarterbacks in the league right now. Is that a good stretch, or is that him coming into his own as a superstar? And then Mike Vrabel's got that thing humming from a coaching standpoint. Is there anything to be said for the Pats being better than the Denver Broncos in terms of the AFC hierarchy?
I don't want to pick on you, Shane. I'm trying not to. But
what a way to start that.
But no, I think about Drake May, and he came after with the kid McCoy. Used to be with his former North Carolina teammate. Everybody was making such a big deal about him.
What, Sam Howell?
Sam Howell, man. I'm sorry, Sam Howell. And
Jane's favorite. Jane still is wondering why Sam Howell has a starting job in the NFL.
Oh, Drake May. I was just like, Sam Howell was.
I think he's an Eagle right now too.
Yes, I believe he is. So yeah, Sam Howell. I think about that. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to bring that up, Shane. So I just thought, dang, Drake May's doing pretty well. I wonder what he's
doing.
Sam Howell was top 5 in passing that year.
Passing yards. At one point during the season, he was up there in passing yards. What happened? How many games did they win? They got the number 2 pick in the draft that year. They were the second worst team in football that year. Okay.
All that passing.
Not everybody can be
Where
Jayden.
is he now? He's
not everybody can be Jayden. All right. Not everybody can be Jayden. But I will say.
Do you still think Sam Howell is a starting caliber quarterback in the NFL?
No, I'm not saying that now. I'm just
okay. Well, it sounds like you're making that argument.
My point, my take was not off at that point in time.
Another good guy. We should stop taking shots at dudes. Another good guy, right?
Another good guy.
But looking at the live arm.
Looking at the Patriots, I think, even though they kind of had an easier schedule this year as well. If you look at that defense, that defense has only given up 2 or less touchdowns in 6 out of 7 of their games. Even though those aren't high powering offenses they saw, that's still, I think that's a statement in itself. Aside from the one game, aside from, I forget which team it was, but I think it was week 1 or week 2 was the only week that they allowed, I believe, more than 2 touchdowns. We're talking about a defense that got Milton Williams, a defense that has Christian Barmore, Christian Gonzalez. So this is a young defense that I think is, I guess, being a healthy complement to a Drake May led offense who, Connor, as you said, is definitely playing some ball this year for sure.
So do we think the Pats are better than the Broncos?
I would not say they are better than the Broncos. I do think they are. I do think they are a potential sleeper team in the AFC.
Okay, so you've got the Broncos as the second best team in the AFC. You think the Broncos are better than the Colts?
See, the Colts look really good right now. I don't know if I'm ready to say the Colts. I trust Daniel Jones in the playoffs. Like I'm not ready to say that.
The Colts beat the Broncos head up. Can I give you a comparison?
But that wasn't in a playoff game with Daniel Jones as starting quarterback.
Correct.
So like that's
take or leave this. How's this for a take it or leave it? The 2025 Colts are the 2024 Vikings. They're going to have an awesome regular season record. They can beat a lot of teams. They've got a journeyman quarterback who's finally reached his potential, and they've got a ton of talent. But they have enough limitations that they are not going to be able to actually make noise in the playoffs against good teams. Take it or leave it. A spontaneous take it or leave it.
Ooh. Well, that kind of goes to my point. Sam Darnold, great regular season.
The Colts are so hard to judge. I'm not saying Broncos, Colts, that's an interesting one. I'm just a new take it or leave it. Right? Let's cycle through here. Do you take that or leave that?
I slightly leave it because
I thought you were going to take it for sure.
I thought about it. I did. I thought about it. I said, that's a good take, but
they smacked the Chargers. They smacked the Chargers.
Yeah,
demolished.
I don't know. I'm not quite convinced yet with that one.
But I'm not saying they're good. I'm saying they're the 2024 Vikings, a team that will put up good numbers and will put up wins, but ultimately is not a true contender.
Pump the brakes on that one. I think I'll slightly take it, but just slightly.
Shane, taking it or leaving it?
I was leaning.
You lean?
I'll take it because it's a talented team, but the question mark is always quarterback. Like, Daniel Jones looks great right now. Sam Darnold looked great in last year's regular season, but
postseason,
a year separated from when we saw them at their highs, they were on their way out of the NFL or on their way to being a permanent backup to third string quarterback in the NFL. Yeah. So I'll take it, especially when, these guys are also put in a system where they have a really good offensive mind calling the plays. Sam Darnold had Kevin O'Connell and Daniel Jones now has Shane Steichen, so I'll take it. I think that's a good comparison.
And we now have, I think, 4 years in a row. We had Geno, and then we had Baker, and then we had Sam, and now we have Daniel Jones, where it is downright routine at this point for these first-round picks that struggled in one place to now go be successful somewhere else. I mean, it has become relatively common now. Brian, you talk about a copycat league. I think teams are going to start putting some real value on these guys. I think it could be a bubble. And maybe you have some special situations, but
could Tyrod Taylor be the next one?
Well, Tyrod
the Jets and lead someone deep into the playoffs. Who knows?
I think the main difference with the Colts though is that they're in definitely an easier division than what the Vikings were in last year, for sure.
No question.
I think that's the main difference. So that could play into their favor, a little bit when it comes to playoffs. But overall, I think it's
no question
pretty much
about
the same.
All right, boys, we have hit the hour mark. We've covered a lot of ground there. Does anything else? Shane, you had a good take it or leave it. Did we fully dissect the Broncos situation? I feel like we went through. I mean, do you definitely feel as though the Broncos are better than the Steelers?
Yeah, I'll take the Broncos over the Steelers right now. I just think it comes down to the defense, fellas. I mean, I honestly don't think this defense gets talked about enough. Like the talent that they have on this D line by itself, Jonathan Cooper, Nick Bonito, Zach Allen, the talent they have in the secondary, Patrick Surtain. We haven't even seen really Jahdae Barron get cooking like that for real, but he's definitely having a sort of a quiet, impressive rookie season, at that corner / nickel spot. So I'm very high on and they haven't had Dre Greenlaw for most of the season other than last week, and he's going to be suspended another week. But
what the heck was that? You just won the game. Go celebrate with your team. Why are you running down an official? You saw that official threw the flag, and then he realized there's nothing he could do with that. He was like, "Oh, the game's over."
The game's over.
He freaked out. He was like, "Ah!" Oh God. Okay. Yeah, but the flag back.
The fact that this defense has looked this elite without Dre Greenlaw, who is one of the best linebackers in the NFL, who has Super Bowl experience. I mean, they're only going to get better.
I
As
don't
Greg
think
Greenlaw
their
strings together a
offense is
few
good enough.
games.
I don't think their offense is going to be good enough, even with a very strong defense. And again, a defense that gave up 32 points to the New York Giants. Granted, the Giants have now put up 30 on the Eagles and the Broncos in consecutive weeks, so maybe it's time to start respecting their offense. But all right, so we're keeping an eye on the Broncos. Shane has submitted a take it or leave it. He's in the game now. He's in the great game. And Brian, due to time constraints, you have been spared Shane Fordham waxing poetic about the Philadelphia Eagles. We will save it for next week. And all of a sudden, that Giants-Eagles game is very, very intriguing. The Eagles coming for revenge. The Giants looking formidable. Can the Giants withstand that collapse and come back and get a second win over a division opponent, or do the Eagles reassert themselves as the best team in the NFC? That game will be very interesting. Commanders-Chiefs, interesting as well, if Jayden Daniels can get on the field.
In closing here, I'll say big difference in this Eagles-Giants game is going to be obviously Jalen Carter and hopefully Quinion Mitchell playing the full game. I mean, we've seen how different that defense looks when those two guys are on the field and when they're not, especially Jalen Carter. And might have a little added boost with Brandon Graham coming out of retirement because of how bad the D-line has looked when Jalen Carter.
I'm glad he's back. I love Brandon Graham, but dang, man, can't let the man rest. The man has earned his rest. Hey, you know what Brandon Graham is? That's Unk. That's Unk right there.
Oh, that's Unk. I was going to say
it's an old school Unk.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah,
now people are going to wonder, wow, these guys have a sports podcast. It's first week of NBA. They didn't talk about it. Listen, we're going to talk NBA. We're going to talk more and more basketball as the season progresses. We wanted to talk basketball today, but we got a little wrapped up because the NFL season continues to be extremely interesting with a lot of great storylines. But make no mistake, we will be talking plenty of NBA going forward. Maybe we'll wait till LeBron gets back from his back injury. And then we'll start talking about it. We don't want to talk NBA without the king.
Yeah, actually we can and we should.
Brian, do you think it's cool when he does this one, the crown?
Whatever.
I like it.
You know what? I'm going to be, when it comes to my Knicks and Mike Brown, I'm going to allow some breathing space for Mike Brown in his first year. I know everybody's going to be like, man, they could go to the Eastern Conference Finals. They can go to the finals this year. Let's see what happens.
I'm ending the pod on a bombshell. Mike Brown, Coach of the Year, 2025.
I hope so. Let's speak that into existence.
Coach of the Year.
All right, do you guys want to hear? All right, here's a Bleacher Report article about Karl Anthony Towns and Mike Brown. They asked Karl Anthony Towns, do you know what your role will be at new head coach Mike Brown's offense? Remember, the season starts this week. He said, honestly, I don't know, but we're figuring it out.
This is so jacked up just to listen to that.
Honestly, I don't know.
Nothing
I don't really know. We got a couple weeks, right? No, the season starts tomorrow, Karl.
And you wonder why the Knicks have punished me since I was a child. It's stuff like that. It's just stuff like that just makes your skin crawl. And I'm trying to be positive for one moment.
There's no way.
There's no real does that to me. You know what?
There's no way I can believe that as brilliant of an offensive mind that Mike Brown is, that he is not.
He's not a brilliant offensive mind.
Yes,
he's a defensive-minded coach.
Offensive mind. He's one of the
He's literally a defensive-minded coach.
No, he's not.
Yes, he is.
No, he's not. If anything, that's been something he's had to work on in the past. He is not a defensive-minded coach.
Does it really matter right now?
Okay. B. Smith has just given up all hope.
All right. Now, listen. Granted.
You saw what I had to deal with last season. You saw it in real time at times. It's okay.
Can we? I don't know. Can I read?
I want to be pleasantly surprised. That's all.
Let's do. You know what? Here we go. We'll save basketball. Yeah. Obviously, as you guys can see, we're itching to talk basketball. We'll save it for next week.
Yes.
And hey, how much basketball will we talk? Just like Karl Anthony Towns. I don't know, but we're figuring it out. I don't know.
How it goes.
See y'all next week.